Choosing a triathlon bike can be a daunting prospect. There are so many points to consider and so many options. But if you're in the market for a triathlon bike and want to make sure you do it right, keep watching as we walk you through what to look for in a triathlon bike. If you're new to triathlon or simply looking to upgrade your bike to something more suited to that big triathlon goal you got coming up and you're looking for a new bike, then the world of bikes and bike parts and materials can be confusing and daunting. Well, we understand, so we're here today to help you with what you should look for and the questions you should ask when you're looking to buy your new triathlon bike. Starting with the big question: triathlon bike or road bike? A triathlon or TT bike differs from a road bike in a few important ways. The most obvious is the front end. Where a road bike has drop bars and shifters and brakes are in the same place on the hoods, a tri bike has a very different front end. Tri bikes have aero bars and a flat base bar, at the ends of which the brakes are mounted. You can install clip-on aero bars on your road bike, and we'll get to that later on, but there are a few differences which aren't so obvious. Tri bikes generally have a steeper seat angle and a shorter head tube. This allows you to get into a more aggressive position with better power transfer, more comfort, and, most importantly, better aerodynamics. You can't really compensate for this on a road bike by simply slamming your seat as far forward as it would go and adding clip-on aero bars. So which is best for you? Well, as with everything, it depends. Mostly on what you'll use it for. If you're mostly going to use it for triathlons and triathlon training, then of course a triathlon bike is only the best thing for you. But if you're also going to use your bike for regular group rides, road races, and just the occasional triathlon, then a road bike is definitely going to be the more versatile option. At this point, it's probably worth pointing out that having both is awesome. A road bike and a triathlon bike, you're sorted for everything. But bikes aren't cheap, and we understand that for most people, that's not an option. But don't be tempted to buy two bikes, each for half the price that you've got to spend. What you'll end up with is two very mediocre bikes, and you won't really enjoy riding either of them. You're far better off having one really good road or triathlon bike that you're very happy with than two decidedly average bikes. Buying a second-hand bike is a great way to save some money, and you can get some really good deals out there. But if you are considering buying a second-hand bike, it's definitely worth getting it checked out by a professional at a bike shop before you complete the purchase. Not all damage, particularly on carbon fiber, is immediately obvious, and even small damage, hairline cracks, can seriously compromise the safety of a carbon fiber bike. The next thing to consider when buying a bike is the fit or the size of the bike. Bikes generally come in small, medium and large, but most manufacturers actually use the measurement of the bike as their size, so 52 centimeter, 56 centimeter, 58 centimeter, for example. This measurement is a measurement from the center of the bottom bracket to the top of the seat tube, and you'll be forgiven now for thinking that you can then compensate for that by raising the saddle or lowering the saddle if you don't have the correct size bike. But be warned that that's not the only measure that changes. That is what they use to measure the size of the bike, but a few other things change with the size, including the top tube length and the head tube length. And changes in these can seriously compromise your fit, leaving you either overstretched or overcramped on a wrong size bike. Before you start searching for your bike, it's worth heading to the bike shop to get measured correctly for your ideal frame size. They'll give you a number like a 54 centimeter or 56 centimeter, and you know what you're looking for. And then it's also worthwhile pointing out that not all bike manufacturers measure their bikes the same. So two 54 centimeter bikes may fit very differently. But again, the bike shop should be able to help you with this. The next thing to consider is frame material. And your main choices are carbon fiber and aluminium. You do also get titanium bikes, but they're pretty rare. And you will still find some steel frame bikes knocking around, but that's mostly because steel frame bikes are pretty much indestructible. They don't actually use steel to make bikes anymore simply because it's so heavy. You probably already know that all the top-end bikes are made of carbon fiber. And this is because carbon fiber is undeniably the best frame material out there today. But before you rush out and buy a carbon fiber bike, consider aluminium. Good carbon fiber is expensive, so if you're on a budget, consider aluminium. You can get a well-made, high-quality aluminium frame for the same cost as a poorly made carbon frame. and your durability and performance is going to be significantly better on the aluminium frame. Then you want to consider everything that is attached to the frame. That is your gears, your cranks, your shifters, and your brakes. And these components can be upgraded later on or replace worn parts, but it's worth considering what you're getting when you're buying to avoid headaches later on. Components generally come in ranges, and as you go up the range, you're going to get improved performance and improved durability and also decreased weight. And you can pretty much decide where you sit as far as the budget goes before you decide which components you want to buy. Obviously, they get more expensive as you go up the ranges. Now, when it comes to components, you may be faced with a choice between electronic or mechanical. And before you say, "Whoa, electronic's way beyond me and it's way too expensive," hear me out, because there's some major advantages. These days, electronics are not that much more expensive than mechanical group sets. The trickle-down effect is starting to bite, and you can get electronic group sets on lower and lower ranges. And there are some major advantages. Electronic is actually more durable, the batteries last really long, and they require a lot less maintenance than mechanical group sets. But there's also a major advantage when it comes to triathlon. And that's because electronic can be shifted in two different places. Now, on a standard mechanical, you can choose where you shift from. If you have a road bike with clip-ons, you can either shift from those hoods with your brakes, or you can move the shifters to bar end extensions on the end of your clip-ons or the end of your triathlon bars, and you can shift from there. But then you can't shift while you're up on your base bar braking. Whereas with electronic, you have the option of shifting in both of those places. Because they're buttons, you can pretty much put them anywhere. So you can shift on both the base bar and on the extensions, which is a major advantage for triathlon and well worth considering a few extra dollars for. You also want to make sure that the gears that you buy have a useful range for the riding that you're going to be doing. Now, you can swap these out later on, but that's an expense you're going to need to factor in when you're buying the bike. If you're only ever doing TTing and flat routes, then you probably want a bigger chainring on the front and you don't need such a big cassette at the back. But if you're going to be doing hilly routes or versatile riding, you're going to be using your bike for lots of different things, then you probably want a bigger range at the back so that you can get over all those climbs and also go fast on the flats. And then you may need to consider rim brakes versus disc brakes. Disc brakes are the future, and I'm afraid they're here to stay, yes, even on triathlon bikes. In fact, in 2022, there are quite a few manufacturers that don't even have a rim brake bike in their whole range. Rim brake bikes will fade out and become less common, but not for a very long time. You will still be able to get wheels and parts for rim brake bikes for many years to come. And because they're now considered old tech, you can get a pretty good deal on rim brake bikes. Bear in mind that your rim brake bike may not have the same resale value down the road as they become more obsolete, but as I say, that's not going to happen for a very long time. It's worth taking a good look at the cockpit or front end of the bike that you're planning to buy too. Some bikes have really good adjustability and you can get them into almost any position, where others have very limited adjustability. Now, this may not be an issue if the bike that you're potentially buying fits you perfectly, but it will also affect your resale down the line. Obviously, if it's not adjustable, the market of people who could potentially buy your bike is significantly smaller because they might not be able to fit onto it. So it is worth considering the adjustability. Adjustability will lead to more comfort for you and also more potential buyers in the future when you're selling it on. Don't let the wheels that your potential bike comes with sell you on a bike, but also don't let the wheels that it comes with dissuade you from buying that bike. While good wheels, even carbon wheels, can make a big difference to the ride, feel and performance of the bike, they're not a deal breaker. You can do a lot of your riding and your training on a cheap set of aluminium wheels and then upgrade them later on down the line, or even rent or borrow a set of good wheels for race day. Wheels are about the only thing on a bike that you can swap out just for race day without affecting the fit or comfort of the bike at all. One last thing to consider before you buy a triathlon bike is travel. Triathlons happen far and wide, and often the best ones are a flight or two away, which means you're going to have to travel with your bike. Road bikes generally fit into most bike boxes quite easily with minimal fuss. But triathlon bikes often don't travel so well. Top-end triathlon bikes generally consider this with some smart engineering, but the entry-level or mid-level triathlon bikes generally don't. and integrated cable routing and aero profiles and aero bars can often make traveling and dismantling and reassembling your bike a real headache. So consider this carefully before you buy your triathlon bike. I think we've covered everything you really need to know before you buy your triathlon bike. But before we go, just a few things that you don't need to worry about before you buy your triathlon bike. Your saddle. It is unlikely that the saddle that comes with your bike is going to be the one that suits you. Saddles are very personal, so you'll probably end up finding one that you do like and taking it with you to all your future bikes. The tires on the bike. These are easily changed and you'll probably want to upgrade them for your triathlon anyway. A new tire simply rolls better and is less likely to puncture. Perhaps even investing in a special race day tire that you only put on for your races. Pedals. Like the saddle, these are pretty individual and most bikes are sold without pedals, allowing you to bring your own or choose the set that works for you. Choosing a triathlon bike is a big purchase and it can be daunting. We hope this video has pointed you in the right direction and given you some tips on what you should be looking for either in your second-hand bike or what you should be asking at the bike shop if you're looking to buy a new bike. If it has helped you, hit that thumbs up button to support the channel and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content about all things triathlon.